for folks who can't make it. So thank you everybody for being here today. Welcome to our very special October community organizer meeting where we have a special guest speaker, which I'll let Aaron introduce himself as we go along. But I really just wanted to make this month's meeting about, we started talking about goal planning and just revisiting like our purpose and our why in what we do in September during September's meeting. So I just wanted to use this time today to answer any questions that you guys have about organizing in general. I know a lot of people in the organizer program right now at Remake are either learning for the first time and are starting, from square one where they don't have a community around them and are interested in learning how to engage that community or how to grow the community, where if they have just like one friend, like how do I build this up into a movement? And also just brainstorm a little bit if you have ideas for the fall, whether it is sustainable fashion related, politically related. If you have ideas for organizing this fall upcoming season that you'd like to talk about or get some feedback on, I'd love to do that today too. And just as like a brief overview of the Remake Community Organizer program, I joined as a Remake Community Organizer in 2021, I believe, or 2022. And before that, I was a Remake ambassador, just volunteering. And the program really took off about 5 years ago after the pandemic. During that time, Remake's Pay Up campaign was having a lot of attention on it. We were working with other labor organizations to have companies and brands pay their supply chain for orders that were canceled in the pandemic. A lot of stores canceled their orders. And as in our community, we know like the effect that trickles down where, you know, a company and you have like a billionaire who's at the top of this like fast fashion company, but then the garment worker who's actually producing these clothes is getting like the brunt of that and feeling the force of the overconsumption in the westernized world. So I know a lot of people have different ways of organizing too. Like the organizing that we do ranges from, it could look like event planning where we're hosting clothing swaps to just gather people and teach them about a circular economy, panel discussions, screenings, uh, you name it, mending workshops. So that is essentially how the community organizers for Remake are building support for people around them. And I wanted to invite Aaron to our call today to speak a little bit about how to build where you are if you either have an organizing unit around you or you're starting for the first time. And just answer questions and have some back and forth dialogue. And Aaron, I'd love for you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background and your first involvement with community organizing too.
Oh, totally. Thanks for the intro. Hey, everyone. So I'm Aaron. I'm calling from Brooklyn, New York City, in the Crown Heights neighborhood. Um, I started community organizing around the same time in 2021, mainly focused on like neighborhood and labor organizing in Chinatown. So that was like what took up like almost like 3+ years. And now I do a lot of organizing more in the Crown Heights neighborhood. Like I spent a lot of time this past year, like really knowing a substantial amount of people in my unit of like 100+ apartments. Really building a lot of connections with like the local neighborhood groups in Crown Heights. And yeah, I think the past maybe it's been a year by now. Like last year, I started making videos, just kind of talking about what I saw or I felt or thought while doing this for like 3 or 4 years so far. And then some of them started picking up more. And I guess eventually someone saw an Instagram video and that's kind of how I ended up here. But the past few videos I made have been like how do I find a group to organize with? How do I talk to my neighbor? Like, how do I find a friend to organize with? How like all sorts of like very maybe niche organizing group related things. But oh yeah, just like in the Zoom chat, and cool to see, Sammy, that you're in Grand Army near Grand Army Plaza.
I thank you for your intro. I'm kind of curious, what have you found to be like in the realm of organizing? What has been your most popular topic, or what do you find that people are looking the most to understand or learn?
That is a great question. I feel like okay, how I'd actually do this is like let me just pull up the Instagram and see like
Totally.
what people are
Yeah.
doing. I think the one that really took off was first like the art of explaining things simply. Like it's sometimes in organizing groups. I don't know how much of this is involved with remake, but people start throwing out like Marxism, praxis, theory, the masses, the cap, like every single
Mhm.
big word you could think of, and it's very like this is kind of a little not grounded in reality. I'm like, I don't call people the masses every day or my comrade every day like that. People also really like the video on how to get political slowly. I think that's a big one that I see among friends too. Like there's oftentimes a like 0 to 100 mindset when it comes to doing things that can lead to burnout versus just like a very incremental approach over like a few months. I always keep that quote from Dune in mind, where the Bene Gesserit were like, "Oh, we measure our plans in centuries." They always have like super long-term thinking. For us, maybe like we measure every 4 or 5 years or 2 or 3 years. I think those are two of the big ones. People also like the echo chamber one, but I feel like that's less
Mm.
relevant to organizing. And I guess right now I'm talking a lot about behaviors within groups that can lead groups to sort of fall apart or become less active over time.
Right, right. That's super interesting. I think for us, like it has been for remake campaigning in the past, we had an in-house advocacy team. So we were leading coalitions on garment worker protections, labor rights, helping support the passing of SB 62 in California, working on the Federal Fabric Act in the US, which I don't think is reconvening this fall. So just more to come on that, everybody. But um, the something else that you mentioned. Oh, we have like done advocacy days at Capitol Hill in DC, that we've organized in the past, just to give you more of a background. And then something that I do hear come up often is like getting out of the echo chamber. Like I feel like the same six people might be coming to something, but how to like either expand that or find like those small goals like you mentioned, like with policy especially, it takes so long for something to move forward. So how to incorporate those small wins to keep everyone engaged and excited like as you go in these very slow fights. But yeah, I'm so excited to hear what the group has to say. I'd love if everyone could just, we'll do like round robin intros. If you could come off mute, just introduce yourself, say where you're located and your experience as an organizer or your goals for organizing. I'll pick Sammy first and then just pick the next person as you finish up.
Hi, I'm Sammy. I'm the one near Grand Army Plaza. I'm also the one who found your Instagram, Erin. Big fan. I've been organizing since I was a kid, kind of like I was that person. Growing up in Chicago, it's a very politically active city. But I found I was like kind of struggling to find my niche a little bit. I did a lot of like criminal justice work in undergrad. But I thought fashion was a really, really interesting intersection because it's something that like I think my demographic is creating the most harm in and has the most opportunity for change. And that's how I found Remake. And I started as a community organizer here about a year ago. And yeah, I have so many questions, but I think organizing in New York can be hard for lots of reasons. And I think within fashion, it's there, it intersects with everything. So sometimes I'm like, do I want to get people who are caring about these social justice issues to understand that fashion's involved, or do I want fashion people to try and understand the social justice issues with them? And it kind of can feel like the scope is too big, and kind of what Holly was saying too. Like I have people that are really, really engaged and doing everything all the time, and I'm trying to keep things interesting for them. But then also I want to bring in new people who it might be their first time, and kind of creating content that is both engaging for people who have been here for a while and isn't too high level for people that are approaching this for the first time. I feel like those are some of the questions that I have as I do this work. And I can pass it on to Haley.
Hi everyone, I'm Haley. I'm located right outside of Philadelphia and I run the yoga club collective within Remake. So I've been doing community organizing, I guess, for about a year and a half now. Um, I do free or donation-based yoga, or it was free and donation-based all last year, in the park, along with a clothing swap. Um, and I think where I'm at with community organizing is I feel like I'm trying to like cater towards the yoga audience, like the yoga community in my area, but then also, and then advocate for Remake's mission at these events and get everyone educated on slow fashion practices and like the benefits of clothing swaps and why we're doing them. But I'm having, yeah, I guess this was like where I'm at with it, like having a hard time on social media trying to keep up with like the trends and like what everyone is engaging with. So just trying to balance like building community online and then also in person and just the intersection of all of how that works. So yeah, I'm excited to hear more from you. And I just followed you on Instagram too. So thanks for doing what you're doing. And then I'll popcorn to Rachel.
Hey, it's lovely to be with you all this morning. Yeah, I'm Rachel. I'm based in Portland, Oregon, and I've only been like a community organizer with Remake for, I guess, starting earlier this year. I've also been doing community organizing in my neighborhood as well. And yeah, so I'm just really glad to be here. The one thing that I've been focused on lately, and this leans more towards my neighborhood and just within Portland, is engagement, and just making sure that people, A, want to be engaged, and really just making sure that I'm not burning myself out with like trying to make sure that people are engaged. I've been noticing this is not with Remake. I love being a part of Remake with like community organizing very locally. It's yeah, I've just noticed that burden kind of mostly being on me and just making sure that I'm trying to take care of myself in the meantime. But yeah, it's been lovely to be a part of Remake, and yeah, just really noticing the excitement and people really wanting to get involved. So yeah, that does not reflect Remake at all. Let's see here. Gonna make sure no one chimed in on chat. How about Carolina?
Hi everyone, I'm very excited to be here. I'm just starting off as a community organizer, so I'm happy to be here and learn a little bit more from everyone that's here. I'm currently located in São Paulo, Brazil, and which is not my hometown. I come from Rio, so I'm excited to try to start building a community here and bring a little bit more about what Remake is trying to do to Brazil as well. So excited to be here. And I think I can pass it on to Ashley.
Hey everyone, I'm Ashley. I'm happy to see a lot of familiar faces and meet new ones. I'm in Virginia, Northern Virginia, so a DC suburb, and I've been organizing for Remake probably about a year. But my background before switching into sustainable fashion, I used to work in arts administration for almost 20 years, and I did a lot of community engagement and education programs for like symphonies and performing arts organizations. So I'm very cause focused. So I'm really thrilled to be advocating for the environment. I've always done that, even since high school. But one of our like since cause-based values are like really important to me, I'm really passionate about it. I try to get other people through education and engagement to be at least a part of a level of passion that I have. And I think that helps me if I'm excited about it or I feel really strongly about it, that it kind of influences other folks as well. Some of the challenges, though, I'm experiencing is, of course, burnout. But what I find that I'm continuing to work on is when I work with a big group of people, like we've organized a fashion show for the last few years, is identifying with volunteers what their passions are, what their favorite things to do, their interests are, because that helps them be engaged and it not feel like so much of a lift for them. So I really enjoy getting to know people like on a genuine level, but I can also get burned out because of that. Like what Rachel's saying, like, am I doing everything I can to like make it a good experience for other people? Um, I think another thing I'm struggling with too is just asking for a lot of help, because I always feel like I tend to do a lot of work and I'm happy to do it, but I always feel like I don't want to inconvenience other people, and just trusting that they're there because they want to be there, and that I can ask them to do like bigger tasks to help me so that I don't get burned out. Um, so so yeah, I think that is where I'm at. How about Kelly?
Hi, I'm Kelly. I'm in Queens, New York. I'm also one of the community organizers with Sammy, and I've been with Remake officially like as a community organizer for a few months, but I've been working with Remake for a little bit as a change maker, and I also work with Fashion Revolution as well, and I've worked with them for I guess 5 years at this point. It was sometime during COVID, and I don't like time didn't make sense then, so I think it's been 5 years. Um, I think like you guys have all talked about things that we all deal with. But I think one of the things that I've been trying to work on is maybe is engagement, but of different groups and stuff like that. Like people have said before, I feel like we tend to have a lot of the same people at events, which is fine. Like I love all of you guys. I love you guys. But I really want to reach a wider audience. I've had a lot of conversations about, you know, trying to reach like men in this or like more people of color and just stuff like that. So yeah, definitely how do we reach other people? Yeah, so I don't remember who hasn't gone yet.
There, Danny, if you're available to mention your intro.
Yes. Hello, can you hear me? Hi everyone, my name is Danny McCletchy, and I'm based between the DMV area, specifically Maryland and Trinidad and Tobago. I'm not an official community organizer yet, but I've participated in some of the DMV events. Albeit it's been a while because I'm traveled back and forth so much. Um, but I'm interested in being a community organizer, particularly in the Caribbean. And so I'm here joining these calls to learn from all of you wonderful people. My experience in sustainable fashion is I have a company called Carnicycle, and we work to make Caribbean cultural fashion and events more sustainable. So think traditional cultural costumes or bikini costumes you think of for like Brazil Carnival. So like making the design more sustainable or even offering sustainable solutions like rental or recycling options that didn't exist before. So I'm really excited to continue learning, and thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. And lastly, I'll just mention Kara in the chat who's joining us today. She's based in San Francisco and has been in the CO role since summer of 2024. My community goal is to build a bridge to people who are not often in the conversation. Yep, hearing that of sustainable fashion, and of course, to spread further dialogue about the human rights issues that are still often overlooked in the mainstream conversation. Yeah. I often go about this by partnering with local brands and merging personal style, which she's a full-time freelance in wardrobe and personal styling. So thank you all. Thank you for bringing your, experience and background and, comments slash concerns of organizing here to this call today. I think the theme that I'm hearing is, everybody just, and I'm guilty of this too, like it's hard to ask for help. You feel like you want to do everything that you can and feel like in charge, or feel like you have to get everything done by a certain time, and risking the burnout that comes with that mindset. um so I'd love, maybe we can start there with burnout, because it is very common with organizing. As a lot of you are, most of you are, you have a full-time role, you have a family, you have a lot of obligations in your life, coupled with the overwhelming feeling of wanting to save the world, because I feel that too. And I do get burnt out myself. So it's not like I have the perfect answer or solution for you, but I would love to talk together a little bit about that, of ways that you handle burnout or ways that you can prevent burnout. Aaron, if you have feedback on this first, and then we can just contribute to the topic.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I was taking notes while everyone was talking. Really appreciate it was Kara and Rachel from like the West Coast 9 a.m. phone calls. Um my immediate response would probably be like there was a video I made on getting members of your group to sort of lurk less in like the group chat and do more. And I think that's actually pretty related to burnout. So specifically, the first thing is being able to rotate the tasks that you do. So I know, Ashley, you mentioned in particular, like it seems like you do a lot, right? Then you feel kind of bad for asking other people. But I think introducing that rotational element of like, this week I'm hosting the thing, next week you're doing the thing. But then it's like if you don't have enough people to rotate with, then it's like you got to train people first and then do the rotation. And then if you don't even have people, then it's like, okay, forget everything else. Just focus on building the pipeline of people coming in and then training them and then rotate. Because I think, that's what leads up to rotation. If you don't have anyone to rotate with, you're going to be the one doing the same work every single week. Yeah.
That's a really good point. And the training ahead of time, I find that, because even like in my role, I'm not technically, community organizing on the ground in the way that I was for Remake, but having to be, have my hand in what everybody is kind of like their structure of what they're doing. Like I even get like, that's really helpful for me to hear, but I have to like figure out what those training positions are. So taking the time to like sit and do that, but that it's also such a good way to engage and like grow people's interest and like involvement, because once they like own a task, I feel, or like have some kind of responsibility, that one, yeah, definitely alleviates like pressure on you, but two, it's like a functioning community at that point, where as many people, getting as many people like a job as you can.
Totally, yeah. And I guess just as two practical examples for the groups that I'm involved with at Crown Heights, like they have monthly meetings where they always need someone to facilitate and kind of, guide like a 1 hour, 20, 30 person meeting, right? And so they rotate. So they have like a whole cast of people where it's like, now it's your turn, now it's your turn, now it's your turn. And their training was literally just like facilitation 101. So everyone before doing that has to take facilitation 101, which is how you lead a big meeting like this. So it's all just very like, just one big flow of people and knowledge that's like very consistent. And you don't, even if one person drops the ball, you can just, move around.
Yeah, definitely. If anybody wants to, I'm really bad at reading and talking at the same time. So if anybody wants to come off mute and chat about what's uh, going on in the comment section, absolutely feel free. This is, open conversation.
One thing that I really liked that you said, Erin, when talking about like the rotation, like this week I'm hosting this event, next week you're doing it. But then you followed that up with if you don't have those people yet, like that rotation of people, then your main job is to be like building that pipeline. And I think that's sometimes like something that, I mean, I get distracted. Like I feel like a lot of us too, like will be like, okay, yes, I'm going to focus on building this pipeline. But then there's like, how do I bring those people in? Oh, I need to host this event. Oh, I need to do things. And then it kind of sucks you right back into
Exactly.
that cycle of just trying to do everything. So I really just like how you phrased it of like, if you don't have a rotation of people to delegate things to, how can we simplify and keep the main goal being growing that community to help us with those things on the ground?
Yeah, you just made that so easy. It's like, oh, okay, done. That's the focus now. Thanks. Been struggling for months. Erin just cured it. Thanks.
I'm definitely gonna, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, this is helping me feel less overwhelmed. So thank you, Erin, because I'm like, I can already identify at least 3 or 4 people that I'd be like, can you just pick a topic and run like a meeting? I think sometimes I've noticed, even with people that are like natural leaders and are really, have the skills, that they're still like, I don't know, like, can I have your help? Because I'm not sure if I'm representing it right and everything. And so one thing I've been trying to do, and I'm, still like learning how to do it, but is to try to give them the confidence to just be like, it doesn't have to be exactly how I do it. Or, in fact, it'd probably be better if it wasn't exactly how no, I'm just kidding. But what I'm saying is everyone has their own unique style, and trying to encourage people to embrace that and just be confident in that they're working for the cause. And so them doing something is better than them doing nothing. And I wrote in the comments too, I try to help me mentally like keep perspective that even when you do something that still feels like it's small and to me I'm like, oh, how can I reach the most people and all of this, but like if you remember that if you have a smaller group that is still really engaged, they're engaging their networks and there's a big ripple effect. And sometimes I hear, like hear snippets that I try to write down so that I don't forget. Like, even though I feel like I'm not making as big of an impact as I'd like, there's evidence that it does ripple out. So it's better to do something, even if it's like a smaller thing, especially like if things change in your life. Like I'm had a lot of things happen lately that my capacity is super low. So I'm just trying to remember, like, it's okay if I'm not as productive as I had been. I'm just not going to give up. And I'm going to take the time I need to not get, super burned out, but I'll just do something. But it's better than nothing.
Totally, yeah. And you could always train those people who are kind of unsure about whether they would mess up or not. Just like it's like here's the baseline for what we need to do. Everything else you can kind of freestyle. Yeah.
Something that New York has been thinking about too is like introducing the idea of like office hours where we'll just like put, because we don't really have like monthly meetings in the way that other groups do, which I think New York we actually probably could, but some of the different like hubs, quote unquote, like people don't live near each other. It just like isn't as feasible, but it's something we've been thinking about in New York, but trying to find a time when like all 3 of us organizers are like available and free to do it consistently has felt overwhelming. But I think like you said, like one of us could do that and we could have a rotation of volunteers help just like gather to um yeah, see, it's like then they can't be well attended, but just to like have people come through and suggest ideas, and different people could take notes. And I think too, just for like Holly and Allison, I know sometimes we'll have like really cool opportunities for speaker engagements and then people get really overwhelmed for that. And I think introducing some of this like training beforehand would be really useful. So like when I was on the news, like I knew what I was talking about because I'm like in school for this, but I think if other opportunities come up for people, like having some baseline experience that like we can track would be really useful.
That's really good feedback for sure. Haley, I saw your
Yeah.
microphone. Yeah.
Well, all these points are awesome, Sammy, what you just said. Like, I know personally when I host the events, I get so nervous to talk about the remake stuff because I'm like, I know what I'm talking about, but do I really know what I'm talking about? So like, I'm sure I'm not the only person that feels that way. So like having that education, even the toolkit that Allison sent a week ago or something is so helpful. But what I was going to say before, was just, yeah, like partnering with other small clubs, other small brands in the area to alleviate some of that stress of having to do everything to make the event go smoothly. Like, just partnering with like another community. Like I work with another community social group in Philly, and that's been super helpful to reach broader audiences, but also like alleviate my stress when I'm hosting the events because I know that someone else is there with me. So yeah, just that there are people out there that like want to do this stuff too. It's just a matter of finding them. So I wonder if there's a way, like, because Ashley was talking about it earlier. I think it was Ashley or Kelly. Sorry, Kelly was talking about it earlier. Earlier, reaching more people. If there'd be a way to make a list of some type of like social groups in Queens or social groups in Portland or where everyone's from that like we could connect with that way. Maybe their mission isn't about sustainable fashion, but just connection. So that's
Yeah, I
brings that.
agree. Do you, Aaron, do you have any like, I guess talk a little bit, if you could talk a little about like your experience or approach with recruiting folks or like outreach, I think that would be super helpful. Or like any tactics you've used for outreach.
Totally. Yeah, yeah. It seems like a common trend among like, Sammy, Haley, and I know Ashley mentioned virtuals weren't well attended, so it seems like a cluster of the same idea. I can only speak from my experience. So when I was doing a lot of Chinatown organizing, primarily around like anti-luxury buildings, anti-displacement in Chinatown, we had like um, one of the groups that I organized with was called the Chinese Staff and Workers Association, so very labor rights focused. And we had like a weekly picket line that's still ongoing, but when I was there for like 3 years, so like every single Sunday for like 3 years straight, sometimes Saturday and Sundays, I was going there and like on this picket line from like 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. just like every single weekend for like 3 years. But it was such like a good repeat activity that was in person, which I think really made a difference, especially if people are having, Zoom meetings with no one showing up. Like that always feels kind of like I'm like, oh man, that sucks. Especially in a very dense city, I would say like New York City or somewhere. It's like I feel like there's so many. I think the short answer is have like an in-person repeat activity and that will build up momentum over time, especially if we all see that the virtual monthlies aren't working, hit the streets in some way. I think would be a starting form with like a repeat in-person thing.
Is anyone currently hosting something like that, like a repeat event, whether virtually or in person?
I know Kara, you guys hosted them in the Bay for a while, like the monthly in person. I know you're at work right now, but whenever you have a moment, if you want to like type in the chat how those went, I'm interested.
I also with Fashion Revolution, like before when we had our student ambassador program, I was hosting monthly calls and it was really great during COVID because like everybody could be on Zoom and everything. But then once things started opening up, we would get like one person and we'd bring like people to talk, and then it'd be kind of embarrassing because we'd have a speaker and then have like me and two other people.
Yeah, I share that too. It's tough, like with the virtual, like just from the remake side, like our programming in January was like our Changemaker social that we had virtually in January popped off. There was like 30 people there, which is a lot for us. And it has trickled down, but like the dead of winter, I just feel more people were on their screens and like setting goals and intentions for the year. So I feel like I want to plan well for January this year because I like people are going to be wanting to take action for sure. But I just cut someone off. So feel free to
It was
cut.
me. And you can cut me off all day, every day. I was just gonna say, I feel like that's why like the idea of like office hours is like nice and casual. Again, I don't know if like framing it as office hours makes people feel like, I don't know, they have to come for a certain reason, but having it not necessarily be this like we have a speaker that's we're embarrassed if only 5 people come up for it, but could be casual and it's like maybe there's a for a lot of our events we usually have like a meditation of some sort, like a grounding exercise, and then there can be just a discussion or like, there's always I know we're not doing these like big level advocacy things on the federal level, but there's always like emails to write to brands or like things to talk about for the Fashion Act here in New York. There's a lot of like similar actions um happening in different state levels. So just coming with maybe something like simple to do, but really it just being for gathering, I think could be useful. Yeah.
Definitely. Haley, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, these are all great things. I know I've experienced that too, just like in my full-time job. Like I have to host networking groups like this. And it's super weird when it's just you and the other person hosting and the guest speaker and one other person because it's kind of feels silly. But I found what's super helpful is when people are on the call. Like this group is so small and I like see familiar faces, so it's so nice because you know who's going to be there. Um, just like building rapport, like making people feel like you know who they are, and then you genuinely will get to know them, but like taking notes and remembering what someone said and being like, hey, it's good to see you again. How was this event that you mentioned last month? Like, it might sound silly, but like it makes people feel very important. And I don't know, it's a good way to keep people wanting to come back and being genuine about it, like actually making these connections and getting to know people sparks more meaningful conversation. At least that's what I found in my full-time work. And then also what Sammy said about having prompts and not like homework, but something that you can like an action item to do. Um, I know we did that, I think, in September's call on this meeting. We were filling out like what we want to see out of the group. So yeah, all great ideas.
A question I had, and this is something that I don't know if you guys have been thinking about too when you're doing outreach. I put this in the chat a little bit, but I feel like sometimes I struggle because there's people where I'm like, because fashion, and this is why I love sustainable fashion because it really intersects with everything. But I feel like sometimes I'll find like people who are like vintage sellers and they have a huge following and they're like really interested in this. So I want to bring them and like their people into like why this is important for like ethical and sustainable reasons too. But then I'll also have people that are like super interested in like climate decarbonization and I want to bring up that like, fashion is a huge, polluter and like all of these things. And then I feel like there's groups that are like, indigenous groups in New York or people that are like super anti-colonial. And I want to, I want to bring them in because fashion, is a huge colonial structure right now and like rooted in imperialism and roots in slavery and like all these things. And I feel like it's why fashion is so interesting and why it means so much to all of us. But I think in terms of bringing people in, that can be hard because I don't know what like not every event is going to like bring each of those groups in, even though they all intersect with our movement and like ideally someone understands the breadth of that and the intersectionality of that. Um, but that's not always how people are approaching the topic from the same like background or interest, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I can speak a bit. Yeah, it seems like in broad terms there is a theme also, Sammy, like you mentioned, but also Ashley and Haley a bit about just engaging new people, right? Everyone's like, we do all this stuff, but it's the same 5 people, and I'm happy to see you, but I also wish there were 5 different people. It seems to be a very common theme. I aside from just having like a regular in-person thing, my own take on this, which may be right or wrong, like, all of this may be wrong, but my own take would be to just first try to understand what people actually care about which I think sounds very simple, but like for me, for example, my only intersection with fashion is when I have clothes to give away. And in New York City, there's this, I guess, like B corporation called Helpsy or whatever. They just have gigantic bins all throughout New York City. And I just go there like once a month and dump whatever I don't need. That's my only intersection with fashion. Um, I know like in New York, there's also sometimes things called repair cafes where people volunteer their skills to repair all sorts of items. I'm not sure if you could partner with a lot of people who know how to do sewing, right, to fix people's dresses for free on like a weekly or bi-weekly basis. Um, I don't know what the clothing world or fashion world needs, but it's like that kind of activity that meets people's needs. Like if New York City does have a lot of people with, shirts, pants, whatever that are kind of falling at the seams and you offer that need, you're going to get a steady stream of people you've never seen before. So I think it's just tapping into like your respective city and what they care about will really help, is my general take. Because even office hours, like people may not show up because they don't know what you're solving for them. So it might be the same empty Zoom meeting, but like if you know what they care about and you provide the solution, I that's what I would do.
That's such a good tip because and just for everyone to know, if you find that you like don't have the capacity to do something like this, or you're just like not there yet, you can always direct people towards our circle platform because I do host that monthly office hours. But now that I'm thinking about it, that I feel like that it should be reframed, or maybe it should change. Maybe it should have a topic like the Changemaker socials. I've now like started to do a topic for them, and that's been fun and different. But yeah, so one, you can direct people to just the one that I do if you want for office hours, and then yeah, maybe I can re like judge that one up a little bit, because when you hear office hours, I don't know, yeah, like to your point, I don't know if people know what to expect, or like how to act or perform, or what to bring to the meeting. But that was a good question. And it's also fun to hear your experience of fashion as well, Erin.
Totally, yeah. Like I don't know what the average demographic of Remake is or what they care about. I can only
Yeah.
speak, I guess, as like a guy, right? I don't even know. Like, there's so much, right? But it's like, and I would say if you don't know the answer to what people care about in your group, I think step one is even just like texting your friends, hitting the streets a bit and understanding if there is a fashion need here, and
Mhm.
then going from there, right? Just really trying to build up from like in person, on the ground, social practice. Yeah.
Yeah, who wants to convert Erin into a change maker on the spot? Who who wants to reel him in?
I can say that you interact with fashion in so many more ways than you think. You got dressed today. Your fiber content in your clothes changes affects your health. It affects the health of your community. We could go on to try and convince you, but everyone wears.
It's reminding me of Miranda Priestley's argument in The Devil Wears Prada.
It's a
That's
really
exactly what, yeah, like we all interact with fashion all the time. Because my dad's the same way, where like when I started doing this work, he's like, okay, well, it's just fashion. I'm like, okay, well, like, yeah, it affects climate, it affects our water. Like there's so many other parts of it.
Yeah, and once you start going down that, you know, rabbit hole, you end up where we are in this room, in the Zoom room.
But I think you made a good point about like what are we like we can all say like okay like we care about like I came on it from the labor rights side, like trying to like, have fair wages paid throughout the supply chain. But like if I'm hosting an event, like what are people leaving that with? Like that's besides education, and like how can we bring people in with something practical? And then kind of like bring in those points. But I do think we do struggle with like people like I said, fashion intersects with so much. And I think that like you could point any social justice issue and I'll tell you why fashion is related to it. And I think there's so often people who like are like super dismissive over like it, just kind of seeing it as like a frilly, like, and I think there's like whatever gender feminist local society aspects that go into people not seeing it as a real issue. But I think like that's always like a layer too that we're like always like fighting against. And sometimes it is these like cutesy, like let's repair our skirts together and like do something cute that like brings people in, but and that's okay. But then we hit them with like the anti-colonial education. But like that's just sometimes what we have to do. But like navigating all of that can be hard because then I have people I feel like who come from this like kind of what I was saying before, but like a really like intense climate or social justice background who are like, why would I go to an event to like upcycle a skirt, you know? Um, but I think you made a good point about like actually asking the questions and figuring out what these people want and finding middle ground and something practical at events to talk to and like bringing those people together.
Definitely. And like another thing is that even on our side too, are figuring out and struggling a bit with is, like you have this stellar office hours or action, you all like get together, you write emails to legislators, like you have this very effective and impactful meeting, and then I guess how to keep that momentum going after the initial excitement is also something that I think everybody is going through and sharing. Um, if you have any tips or feedback for that bit, Aaron.
Oh yeah. I think I just like made a video about that. That's today or tomorrow. But my take on it was someone in my Instagram recommended this book called 20 Enemies by James Foreman, who is an organizer for the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. I can type it 20 Enemies. Um, and he has this whole chapter on morale, and he's like, the reason why people lose morale is because they don't think about the long range nature of the fight. And to me, I'm also like, yeah, I can kind of see that still to this day. It's like, what is the longer term plan? Long term is subjective depending on how much time people have been in your group. Like I've heard some people are like, I've been here for a few months, I've been here for less than 1 year. Your long term is probably just 1 or 2 years later, right? It's very subjective depending on your experience. Um, but I agree with that. It's like, here's our big picture. Here's where we're going. And just always keep that in mind to, whenever things don't feel that great. But personally, I think from my experience of doing like the 3 years of just constant picket line, having that daily or weekly, like very action oriented thing where you can have small wins also is helpful for building that narrative towards like the longer term vision. So basically, I guess short answer is you can gain your small momentums and dopamines from like the weekly direct actions, and then you just kind of keep the big picture in mind when things aren't going that well in the short term.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for this recommendation. The second you brought up a book, I saw everybody like jostle to take the note.
Oh,
So
yeah.
thank you for sharing that resource for us.
Yeah.
And I see Sammy the screening. Yeah, for last year, Sammy with the New York hub had done. Sorry, my cat is very hungry. Um, Sammy had done a screening of the Buy Now documentary on Netflix, and then incorporated like DIY crafting, gift giving with that. And also like on the topic at the time, we were focusing on our Make Amazon Pay campaign. And I feel like screenings really are such a good type of community building event to, if you don't know what to start with, or something that is pretty low lift, like having a screening like that and then hosting a discussion afterwards where you're like, like how did it make you feel? What perspectives do you feel we're missing from this? What can we do today to either honor or fight against whatever you happen to be watching? But that was a really good example, and the turnout was, it was really nice for
I'm
that type
thinking
of event.
you reflecting on Aaron, like what you're saying about picketing, and you said that they're still doing it, right? They're still picketing. Like that, right? That's like part of the value of that isn't necessarily that like it's it's been years and they're still doing it, but I feel like there's value in doing it, but then there's also value in just like bringing people together and then like showing things. And I think sometimes maybe we can be doing that more. Like I feel like we don't like sometimes we'll have social media campaigns against brands and stuff, and it's not like if we got right, like if we I'm imagining that maybe we could institute like getting together and like writing postcards to brands about what we think they should be doing. And like, do we think that that's going to make Nike have ethical things? Like, no. But I do think it's like something people are doing every day. And then like with picketing, it's like you see people see that and then they ask questions. So if we can do things that are visible and people ask like, why are you like, what's this postcard you're writing? Or like, why are you out front of Nike or something like that? Like I feel like doing something that's visible every week, even if it doesn't have this like the purpose doesn't need to be greater than visibility and something to be doing every day, even if this might not be the most like effective way of making change. Which again, I think picketing could be like there's lots of interesting pop-ups in New York. Rosie's been dying to get arrested for the past couple months
Yeah,
for our but I think just like visibility in general could be good.
totally. And again, I think like you know, we have people on the West Coast, we have people on the East Coast, we have Carolina in Brazil. Like I think the primary way that fashion intersects with, you know, your location might be very different, right? I have no idea, but that's the thought. Yeah, like with picketing, we were essentially picketing this really, really big landlord developer in Chinatown who like sold this really famous Chinese dim sum hall to like a Swedish luxury furniture developer. And so we were like, okay, our thing is to boycott all the places he owns until he reopens the original restaurant. And I think part of the win daily for picketing, though, was people would hear about that and would be like, oh, I was planning on going to this place, but after, you know, hearing you talk about it, I'm just going to go somewhere else. So like we would always cheer when people were like rerouting and like changing their plans. So that's like a very tangible, direct win. I do believe in like effectiveness and actually having results because like I've done the postcard thing, the email thing, the like 5 or 10 years ago, like the change.org signatures. To me, I'm like, yeah, I really don't think that does anything anymore. You know, I feel like people just delete the email or like they, you know, there might be a trash can next to the mailbox, you know, like I think measuring effect is something that everyone will be able to do over time. But yeah, I don't know like the way in which, again, fashion will intersect with New York City specifically. I'm very curious, but I have no idea, but keep me updated. I have no idea. Like, but whatever it is, like when you really tap into that, people will like flock to you.
I love that excitement. And we've seen a little bit of that when we were campaigning for Levi's to sign the international accord, which was a binding agreement to for their factories to have protections in place for their garment workers. And for like 3 or so years, Remake, we were encouraging everyone, you know, global community, wherever you are, you've got a Levi's nearby probably, and you know, pick it outside. We were dropping like QR codes in the pockets of the jeans, like talking about the international accord for people that were shopping to find, to then like voice, you know, their concern and want for Levi's to sign on to this agreement. We were hand delivering letters to the store managers of the Levi's, just talking about like who we were from Remake, why we care about Levi's, and like why we want them to sign on to this accord to protect their workers. So, and that was a very exciting time. And then once Levi's actually signed onto the international accord, it was last fall, it was last October. It was, I have never experienced joy like that in my life, like in a like after the 3 years of working together collectively. So to feel that win, it felt huge. And that's also to say, like, I know some of you are in places where you may not have like a hub around you, but we on this call are also a hub. So we can decide together, we can pick, it sounds like Sammy really wants to do a Brandy Melville uh picket. Like if we can find like a nearby store, like it's something that we could all do in solidarity and find different ways of doing it where we are. It's something that we can choose our own campaign here, and we can each do it, you know, wherever we are, and find a way for even the yoga club, Haley, to incorporate. But we somehow only have 3 minutes left. Aaron, thank you. I would love to invite you back again if you'll come see us sometime.
Yeah, totally. Maybe like, 3 months from like 3 months from now, 4 months from now, whatever amount of time feels right for action, right? Like a check-in again. Yeah.
Yeah, and if anybody has any questions or follow up, definitely follow Aaron. We dropped his information at the beginning of the call, his Instagram. We'll have the recording for this, and for the next community organizer meeting, I'd love to work a little bit more about having like a campaign that we could all choose and work on together. I think that would be really helpful for everyone, and then we can go through like the trials and tribulations of what that looks like in each hub, but we could do that together, which I think would be really exciting for the fall and like leading into the new year as well. So yeah, thank you all. Thank you, Aaron, for being here. I think I certainly learned a lot, and now I have like new questions going on in my head and a new direction that I'm gonna move forward with for my role in organizing. But yeah, I would love to keep the conversation going. And if anybody wants to ask any further questions, you can email me or reach out to me on Circle. You guys know my email.
Yeah, cool. Oh, I wasn't sure if I was supposed to say something like an ending, but I really
If you feel
appreciate
so inclined.
really appreciate everyone just like, tuning in, especially for people who had to like wake up extra early, or I don't know if nine's early, but you woke up at 9 to be here. Really appreciate that. Yeah, I would be so interested in just hearing like the most direct way in which fashion overlaps with everyone's specific city. Like Sammy mentioned, yeah, like New York Fashion Week is a very New York City and fashion intersection. I'd be so curious to hear what that looks like for everyone else's city, along with like a day-to-day concern that like people may have. Like I know New York City used to have like lots of garment workers, right? Some
Yeah.
of them became like home aides now because there are a lot of Chinese home aides. But like I feel like garment kind of moved overseas, so that's not like a direct thing as much anymore. But I'd be so curious, like, what is the most direct, like, how are people in the city most impacted by fashion on like a day-to-day level? Yeah, the next time if we meet, I would be so curious to hear like what people have found in their own cities.
I love that. We'll give you a report.
Cool.
Thanks, guys. Thank you for being here.
Yeah,
Thank you,
cool.
And
everybody.
you'll
Thanks,
hear
Erin.
from me shortly. You'll hear from me soon.
Cool. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.